Hello, and welcome to episode 281 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko, and today is July 14th, 2025. And today I'm again wearing two old pieces, and it was only in preparation to the video that I realized that the designer of this shawl is the same designer who designed the shawl that I wore in the last proper episode 2 weeks ago. So that's quite fun because the top's also by the same designer as the top that I wore in the last video. So that's really fun. So this pattern is called Maxilie, and it's again by Birgit Freier, I think, from Die Wollust. And I finished the shawl in December 2012. I didn't put into Ravelry when I started it, but the yarn is a pure wool. It's a Danish yarn. Or it's at least it is from Denmark. My colleague back then in the yarn shop where I used to work, she bought this yarn for herself, and I think she bought probably two skeins, two balls of yarn, and then she used more than one for her own shawl, and then she gave me the leftover yarn. And so one reason that I decided to knit this pattern is because you start with this lace edging and you knit a very long stripe, and you can knit it as long as you like. And then once you finish that, you pick up stitches from this side of the lace stripe, and then you knit the triangular shawl from the bottom up. And I thought I can knit the shawl as big as I want, because most important thing for me is to knit this stripe out of the this yarn. And then if I ran out of yarn in the triangle, I could have used some black yarn that I had lying around to finish the triangle. So I started this strip, and I thought I was knitting a really long strip of lace yarn. And then at some point I realized that I had started with black and I could finish with black, and I had black in the middle of the strip of lace, and that's what I did. And then I picked up the stitches and I knit the whole triangle, and I never ran out of yarn. I still have a bit left, so that was rather crazy. But I really like the shawl. I like the construction. I could imagine knitting it again, especially as it's 13 years ago that I knit the pattern. So after 13 years I have no problem repeating a pattern. And yeah, I chose to wear this because I hadn't shown it in quite some time, and I thought it went well with the red of the top. So the top is also out of the Japanese magazine that I showed in the last proper episode. And this was crocheted out of some, it wasn't a cotton, it was, what's the other thing? It's a plant-based yarn, but it's man-made, and I forgot the word for it. So it has a shine to it, and it's a really nice looking yarn. And I remember I bought it in several colors, but it's really hard to crochet with it because it kept splitting. So I started the first half of the top, and then somewhere around here I put it down for quite some time. Oh, by the way, this I started in 2011, so before I knit the shawl, but I finished it in August of 2014. So it took me a really long time. And I remember that I really had to force myself to finish the first bit and then do the same thing all over again for the back. So the top is the same on both sides. No, it's not the same. Is it the same? Oh, I think it is the same, because what you do is you end up with two circles, and then you crochet sort of bits on this end to work it sort of into a square, and then you do that on both circles, and you are supposed to do the same down here. So if you add the same bit down here, then you get a top that has a straight edge. But I was sick and tired of working on this, and also I really like this rounded edge on the front and on the back of the top, and also it's quite long. Most Japanese patterns only have one size, so I couldn't really change, or I didn't want to change anything, and it ended up being rather long, so I decided to leave it like that. And then there's an edge round the neckline and the armholes. And I crocheted the same edging round on the bottom of the front and back, so that it got a nice and clean looking edge. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so black and red are the colors for today, and I like both pieces a lot. Yeah, I think that's it. So the last proper episode is 2 weeks ago, so I have a lot to show you today, so I will probably hurry a bit so that the video doesn't get too long. Okay, finished objects. I'll start with the oldest. That's probably the Vest Friends Vest by Tin Can Knits that I knit as part of the pattern battle from last December. So the yarn arrived in December of last year, and I think the cast on date was the 1st of January. So I must have started that sometime in January, and I finally finished it. So I haven't changed a lot. I've sewn this bit together, not very nicely. There's a hole there. I don't mind. Anyway, so I decided to close this up because I didn't really like the look of it open, and I undid the cast off of both the armholes, and I cast off with a smaller needle to get this a lot tighter than it was before, so it looks better and it doesn't flare out. And this is all the embroidery that I decided to do. So I started with this little motif, thinking I might add a big one here or in the back. I even thought of doing 2 little ones down here, but I was just so tired of this project at this point, and I think it looks nice. It does have the white in all the edges, and it has a little embroidery now, and I really look forward to wearing this either with my pullover in the same colors or with the skirt in the same colors. And and I sewed on the buttons. I bought the buttons in a sort of yarn festival kind of situation, and there was this one stand with loads and loads of buttons, and there was an old elderly couple who I think they had a shop. Either they had a shop or he collected buttons, I don't know, but they had so many buttons, and he was saying that he was trying to sell some now that he was getting older, so instead of increasing his button stash, he wanted to decrease it, and I helped him decrease his stash and increase mine. And I thought these buttons are just perfect in their colors for this vest. And I'm happy that it's finished now. Let's see if it's cold enough for me to wear this next week. If the weather stays the same, it's probably too warm, but I'll try and wear it in the podcast at some point. So that was number 1. Then number 2 are the day and night socks. That were the round 1 Sock Madness socks this year, and this was the first version that I started knitting, but it's a second version that I finished knitting. So you can see they are both done. I will take one off the sock blocker and put it on the straight blocker, because that's how you're supposed to look at the socks. And it's a very clever pattern that's not difficult to knit, because you only knit with 1 color per round, and then with the way you slip the stitches, you get this 2 color pattern, and you have the day and night half of the socks, and I think they look really fun when you wear them. And yeah, really happy they are finished now. The second pair that I started and the first that I finished were for me, so these are going to go to a friend. And the next is a finished object, but not a finished project. And I'll quickly explain a little bit about it. If you've been following my videos for a long time, you might remember that I once knitted, I ended up with 11 hats like this. Most of them were knit by me, but some were knit by friends of mine. And those thingies were glued on by the recipient, not by me. So these are for a dance group, a children's dance group who dance as little dwarfs, and she needed these pink hats, and so that's why I made them back then. And now she reached out to me and asked if I could make several more. I'm not quite sure whether she needs 4 or 5. I have to ask her that. And because they have new children joining the dance group. So I started making more of those hats. And again, I asked for help because I don't really enjoy knitting the same thing 4 or 5 times in a row. So I started the first one and I had to start 3 times to remember how exactly I had gotten this shape, because she wanted this thing up here, but they couldn't be too long because the children are supposed to do cartwheels, I think they're called, without the hat falling off and without the hat touching the ground. So I wanted this tip up here, but they couldn't be too long. So I worked it out back then. It took me some time to remember. But with the third attempt, I remembered how to do this. Then I did all the increases and I knit part of the straight bit. And then the rest of the straight bit was done by a friend who said she's not very comfortable with doing the increases, but she'd love to knit the straight bit for me. So she knit a huge chunk of that, and then I did the ribbing and the cast off. And different to how I usually do things, I will now show also a work in progress, and that's the next hat. So I started the second one before the first one was finished because another friend decided to do a whole hat for me. So to show her how the beginning works, I knit my second hat, and she started her first hat. And then the deal is that I'm going to do all the increases on this one, and then the same friend who knit the straight bit in this will do the straight bit in the second hat, and then we'll see about the number 4 and number 5 who's going to do those. Oh, by the way, I have 5 new cast-ons today, and but I have at least I have 4 finished objects as well, so it almost balances out. Yeah, so these are a new cast-on. I have 1 finished object, but I'm still working on the project. And the next new cast-on is also a finished object, and that's like a quick project in between, and it's a bottle cozy. But I forgot to bring the bottle that it's actually for. So for today, I put a different bottle in so I can show you the bottle cozy with a bottle inside. And so this is, I didn't have a pattern for this. I improvised it. I just started with crocheting a circle. Oh, and by the way, the bottle that this is meant for has exactly the same color as the yarn. So you can see pictures on Ravelry if you want to have a look at that. But I just started with a circle, and then I started doing the granny pattern when I didn't need any more increases. And then I just crocheted as high as the bottle is. So the other bottle is a bit shorter than this one. And then when I was about to start the strap, I was talking to my friend Heike, who's always full of good ideas. And I asked her whether I should do a few stitches and then turn around all the time, or whether I should do a long chain and then crochet onto the chain. And then she said the problem with the chain very often is if you do a chain and then you crochet onto the chain, you have a different gauge with the chain and with the stitches you crochet on top. And she doesn't like the strap to look asymmetric. Yeah. And so I was about to do stitches with the chain worked onto them. But then she had the idea that I could do a chain and then crochet onto both sides of the chain. So that's what I did. So I ended the last round, then I did a long chain, and then I crocheted double crochets onto one side. And when I reached the other side, I crocheted double crochets onto the other side. And then it wasn't quite wide enough for me, so I did another row of half double crochets on each side. So now the chain is in the middle of the strap, and I crocheted stitches onto both sides. And that was US terms. With British terms, it would have been a row of trebles on both sides and then a row of half trebles on top of the trebles. And then my friend Heike said that she had just learned how to do a 1 round little butterfly. And she taught me how to do that. And I crocheted 3 little butterflies that I attached to the bottle cozy. And it's a short Instagram video that shows how to do this 1 round little butterflies. And they're not very obvious because it's the same color yarn, but I still think they look really fun. And now I can carry the bottle around my shoulder, and I can drink something anytime I like. So that was a new cast on and a finished project as well. And that got me through all the finished objects. Now on to works in progress. And I started a new sock. So just in case you didn't watch the special video last week about the Sock Madness sock, there I show my finished Nouveau Deco socks. So I didn't bring them today because I already showed the finished socks last week, just in case you missed that. So I'll start with the new cast on that I cast on. And that pattern is called That Precious Skein. And I'm knitting that for somebody who wanted to have that pattern, and she was in love with this color of opal yarn, and this is one of the colors that I used for the socks with the one row stripes. What are they called? The helix stripes socks I knit for my sister. So this was one of the colors, and because I did not use this color for the cuff, heel and toe, I had enough left to do a pair of socks. So I decided to knit this pair of socks. So I said That Precious Skein is the pattern name, and the designer designed them to showcase a very precious skein, probably a hand painted yarn, but I'm just using the opal yarn, and it has this kind of drop stitch pattern, and it makes the leg rather big and loose, but it's also supposed to sort of fold in itself a little bit, so I think it's okay to have this slightly bigger cuff. But I did decrease 4 stitches before I started the heel, and I'm knitting the heel as written, so it's heel flap and gusset heel, and all I've done so far is the heel flap. I will now have to do the heel turn and then pick up stitches and so on and so forth. But it's a really fun pattern, and some of my friends have said that this would make a nice pullover as well. But I think you could also use this pattern for a cowl, for example. So yeah, very nice pattern. So that's the only pair of socks that I'm showing you right now. The next project are the lace wrist warmers that I've been knitting for quite a while now. So I finished 2 pairs of wrist warmers and I started the 3rd one. And I'm still using the lace alpaca yarn by Hansa Farm, but now I'm holding it double with this black glittery yarn. And I really like the way this looks. So I've knit quite a bit on these last weekend when I had 2 really long train rides. And you can see that the glitter is not, it's not very, well, it is quite obvious, but it's not too light because it's a black glitter yarn. It's very visible, but still not too bright, if that makes sense. And I love the way it looks. I'm really happy with this. I've now done 1, 2, 3. I'm into the 4th repeat of the pattern. So I will at least do 5 and maybe I'll do 6. But I'll decide that once I've finished the 5th repeat of the pattern. Really happy with this project. And I've already shown the pink hat. The next small project with sock yarn, or smaller project with sock yarn, is the Wolkig I'm knitting. This is a pattern by Martina Behm. It makes a really nice cowl that I've knit before, and I'm knitting that out of sock yarn with some silk content. And I haven't moved the marker, so last time I showed it to you, I was just right above the marker, and now in the last 2 weeks I've added quite a bit of knitting, and I have now less than 25 grams. I haven't weighed it very recently, but this is nearing its end and I'm really happy about that. I'm looking forward to finishing this, and once the weather cools down, to wearing this. Yeah, and then I picked up an old project that I haven't looked at in quite a while. So I'm trying to come back to all the projects that I have neglected during the last couple of weeks and months. And I've picked up the cowl, the double knit cowl that I started last Christmas. And for Christmas, my friends gave me this very colorful glittery yarn, and I decided to use the dark blue as the contrast color. And I was also given a book with those motifs in it. And so I'm knitting the yarn that I was given with the patterns that I was given as a Christmas present. And this is my Christmas cowl. It's going to be a cowl. And I put it down when I was about here. And one of the reasons I didn't pick it up was that I thought I had to pick out the next pattern to knit. So when I finally picked it up last week, I thought, well, I'll pack it and then I'll have to find a pattern. And then I looked at the knitting and I realized I'd already started a pattern, but I'd only done 2 rows. So fortunately, among the pictures on my phone, I found the pattern that I had started knitting, and I've now finished half the motif that I had picked out. So in the book that I'm using, all the patterns are either 12 or 24 stitches, right? And the 24 stitches I can knit twice on this shawl, and the 12 stitches patterns I can do 4 times. And sometimes if the motifs are even smaller, sometimes there are 3 motifs instead of the 1. And yeah, so, but I am trying to alternate a big motif and a small one. And yeah, I'm really happy I picked this up again, and I don't want to put it down again. So I hope I will keep knitting on this. I do want to finish it this year, so maybe I can wear it this Christmas. That would be wonderful. So that is that. And then the next new cast on is another fairly small project, but it is a garment. It's just a very small garment. And that's the new pattern battle. So the last parcel arrived in May. We always get the Opal subscription parcels in March, May, September, and December. And the color that was chosen for the pattern battle from the May parcel was this very bright color, and I decided to knit a baby or a child's dress out of the One Skein Wonder Book sock yarn. And you start by knitting a long strip in ribbing, and then you pick up stitches to knit the 2 backs of the dress, and then you pick up stitches to knit the front of the dress. And this is what I have so far. I sewed the shoulder seams together, and now I have to pick up stitches everywhere. So I have to knit a button band and a buttonhole band. I have to knit ribbing around the armholes and knit a ribbing around the neck. And once the whole top of the dress is finished, I'm going to pick up stitches down here, and I will knit the skirt of the dress. And that's going to be really interesting. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way this dress looks at the moment. It's a very nicely written pattern. My colors are very different from the one. They're not completely different from the ones in the book, but it's a different yarn. So the stripes come out completely differently. So that's really interesting. So that's the new pattern battle. Finish one, started the next. Then what else have we got? I brought both the skirts that I'm knitting for myself, and the older one is the Even Star shawl that I turned into a skirt by not knitting the middle of the shawl, but casting on stitches. I cast them on provisionally so I can add ribbing once I finish the main part of the skirt. And I finished the main pattern of the shawl, and I'm now working on the knitted on edge, and I am knitting 3 beads in every wrong side row instead of the 5 that are in the pattern. And I've just added a few more pattern repeats of this lace edging, and I counted how many I have yesterday. I think I forgot the numbers. But I've done more than 1/4 of the stitches, but less than half. So I'm somewhere in between there. And but I'm really enjoying this as well, and I'm so looking forward to finishing this skirt. And I'm so looking forward to blocking this because this is going to look so much nicer once it's blocked. And I've no idea how long the skirt's going to be once it's blocked. So this is really, really exciting. And I did the provisional cast on because I wasn't 100% sure that I would have enough yarn for the whole skirt. So I thought it's more important to have the right yarn at the lower edge, and if I use a different yarn for the waist ribbing, that's okay. But so far I think it looks fine. I might have enough yarn to do the whole thing in the same yarn. So that's that skirt. And the other skirt is the short row shaped skirt that I'm doing in the way that my sister keeps knitting skirts. And we did a special video a while back where we explain how these skirts are knit. And I picked 3 different opal yarns that all have some blue and some white and some gray in them. And I am alternating those 3 colors. And this is what I have so far. And this is probably 1/4 of the skirt that I'm knitting, but I don't know yet. I will just keep knitting until this bit fits around my middle. And then I can sew the beginning and the end together, and I can pick up stitches to knit the ribbing, and then I can decide whether or not I want knitted on or some lace edging. It doesn't have to be a knit on edge. I will probably pick up the stitches and knit the lace pattern downwards, so I'll have to look for a pattern that works that way. Yeah, but that's a fun knit. The good thing about the skirt being so short is that it works up fairly quickly once I do decide to pick it up and work on it. Now that brings me to the 2 blankets. I haven't cast on a new blanket, so that's good. And the first one is the Starflower blanket by Tin Can Knits out of Hansa Farm's DK weight alpaca yarn, so it's machine washable. And all I did on that blanket is add 1 motif. So I finished this motif, haven't sewn it onto the rest of the blanket yet, but it's going to go next to the dark green patch. So it'll go here. And then the next color is going to be the deep ocean colorway, which is a beautiful mix of blue and green. And then the next one is going to be blue, and so on and so forth. And that I'm really rushing through, but I think I can probably get through everything in about half an hour. So the next blanket is the Mandala Madness crochet blanket that I'm enjoying so much. And I finished one more hint or one more part of the pattern. And for that hint, I came back to this blue that I used at the very beginning and repeated those 2 turquoise colors. And this is what it looks like now. And as I said last time, so the next row I crocheted into these, into this sort of lacy pattern. And then for these bobbly things, I again had to turn the work around so they are crocheted exactly the same as these. So that was fun. And then with this bit, it was very interesting that when I crocheted the last round in the, oh no, I started with this color, right? I started with the blue, and then, this is really complicated. Yeah, I started with the blue, then the light turquoise, I crocheted these thingies, and then with the next color, I went completely behind the light blue things and had some chains here, and the color only shows in these little bits. And then with the darker blue, I crocheted into these chains, so to come up behind the light blue. And then in the last round, I actually attached the light blue to the dark blue so it doesn't flop over. So interesting. I just love the way she designed all these different patterns and the way they come together. So it's grown a little bit, and I am looking forward to adding the next few rounds of crochet. So that is that, and that brings me to the knit-alongs, sock knit-alongs that I'm doing on this channel. And for June, I filmed a tutorial that I think I still haven't translated. I will get to that at some point. But I started knitting a pair of lace socks with this colorway. And last time I did a proper video, I think I'd only done half a heel. But I've since then finished both the heels. So I'm knitting them 2 at a time on a circular needle using the outside and the inside end of my ball of yarn. And after finishing the heel, I did a bit on the foot of the sock. So I'm knitting the sole stitches in stockinette stitch, but I am keeping in pattern for the top of the foot. And yeah, really like the way the socks look now. And it's a nice portable project for on the go because the lace pattern is really simple and it's easy to memorize. And now that I have half the stitches just in stockinette stitches, even easier. And yeah, that's these socks. And then for July, I filmed a tutorial video on how to knit yoga socks. That is socks without a heel and without a toe. And got it tangled up here, sorry. And I decided to do a knit to purl to pattern, but for the pattern not to be too, or the video not to be too short and too boring, I decided to show how to cross your stitches. So you start with the knit to purl to pattern, and then you can cross your stitches so the knits become the pearls and the pearls become the knits. You could just swap, you could do one round of knitting and then swap the stitches. That would look interesting too, but I decided to sort of cross the stitches over so that the knit stitches seem to keep going, if you understand what I mean. And but with the crossing of the stitches, I'm not doing proper mini cables, but I'm knitting both stitches while I cross them, so you do get this sort of line of purl stitches on the inside. And if you look at the sock like this, the pattern is hardly visible, but if you put something inside, a sock blocker or a hand or a foot, a leg, it's more visible. And I decided, in the video, I'm knitting tiny socks, so I am crossing the stitches, I think every 5 or 6 rounds. But for the grown-up version, I decided to do that every 10 rounds, which is why I'm using a 10 round counting device, help something. And I decided to do 7 of these pattern repeats, and then I will cast off stitches and knit on new stitches. That's what I'm showing in the video. And then for the part that's in between the toe and the heel, I will not cross the stitches. I will just do a knit to purl to rib, so that's a bit simpler and easier. And so these should be fairly quick socks for this month, because I thought in July maybe you don't want to have a big project. Yeah, so that is everything I knit and crocheted last week. Even though it's quite a lot, I got through rather quickly. I hope it wasn't too rushed. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!